So earlier today, I was thinking about if there's a veteran player who could potentially find themselves on the roster bubble for the Denver Broncos entering training camp. And I came up with somebody who may be a surprise to some and may not be a surprise to others, depending on how you view this player, and that is center Lloyd Cushenberry. Cush is a guy who was drafted in the third round of the 2020 draft out of LSU. He was Joey Burrow's center for their 2019 championship run, and he was highly regarded, especially for his mental acumen at the center position. And that part of his game, I feel like, has definitely translated to the NFL level, but there are other parts of his game that I feel like have failed to translate to the NFL level, and in particular, it's play strength. The dude gets overwhelmed on blocks very frequently. In fact, we're going to visit my favorite site for offensive line stats, that is Sports Info Solutions. They've got a stat known as blown blocks here, and that's pretty self-explanatory, honestly. They've got it broken down for both pass blocking and run blocking. Lloyd Cushenberry is going to be entering his age 25 season this year, his age 25-26 season, actually. So this is really the year where you really expect Lloyd Cushenberry to either figure things out or not figure things out. And we're going to talk about it later, but this season, he's going to be in a situation where he has to figure things out, or else, quite frankly, he's not going to make it as an NFL caliber center. So let's take a look at his blown blocks here. In 2020, his rookie season, blown pass blocking was a big issue for him. He had 20 total blown pass blocking snaps out of 620 or 613 total snaps. Then in 2021, I will admit he did rebound. He had 8 total blown pass blocking snaps. If you come over here and look at blown run blocking snaps, in 2020 in 404 snaps, he had 15 total blown run blocks. In 2021, that number once again went down to 14 blown blocks in 413 rushing snaps. Then when you come back over here to pass blocking snaps in 2021, that was also down significantly, I might add. In 577 snaps, he had just 8 total blown pass blocking snaps. So that is a significant improvement for Lloyd Cushenberry. And that was, I feel like, a product of being in his second year under Mike Munchak and getting a lot more comfortable with what he was trying to teach him and the concepts required to execute this blocking scheme, or the previous blocking scheme, I should say, at a high level. Then Butch Berry and Nathaniel Hackett came in and completely changed the scheme to a wide zone blocking scheme, very Shanahan-like, if you will. And Lloyd Cushenberry really struggled with that transition, and his statistics show it. Now, if you'll remember, Lloyd Cushenberry only played in 8 games for the Broncos last season. His final game played was our matchup against the Jags in London, and he had a chance to be activated later in the season, he said, but the team ultimately decided not to activate him, and they left him on injured reserve for the rest of the season. But in those 8 games, he blew 7 pass blocking snaps in 293 pass blocking attempts. Then he blew 10 run blocking snaps in 176. So he was on pace here for nearly or over 20 blown run blocking snaps and 14 or more blown pass blocking snaps. So that's an issue in itself. Obviously, we were hoping that Lloyd maybe would have turned things around in the later half of the season, especially after Butch Berry had gotten fired, because I had heard from various sources, even back in training camp last year, that Butch Berry was a significant issue for this team and that he was really going to hinder the growth opportunities for players such as Lloyd Cushenberry and even Garrett Bowles, who really thrived under Mike Munchak. This season, Lloyd Cushenberry is going to be under his third different combination of head coach, offensive coordinator, and offensive line coach with Sean Payton, Joe Lombardi, and Zach Strief, respectively. I'm really hoping that Zach Strief is going to be able to get the most out of Lloyd Cushenberry, because he is a former player himself who went through some early struggles in his career and sort of started to figure things out in year 3 and year 4. That was a similar trajectory to Garrett Bowles and how his career shook out. Unfortunately, with Bowles, he's really been hampered with injuries these past couple of years. But it's really going to be interesting to see how Lloyd Cushenberry fares in his first year in this Sean Payton offense, where he's going to be going back to a little bit more of what he was successful with in, dare I say this, the Pat Shurmur offense. I feel like that offense was a little more conducive to what Lloyd Cushenberry was trying to do in his game. And I feel like Sean Payton's offense, at least from a schematic standpoint, not from a play sequencing standpoint or anything like that, there are more parallels to Pat Shurmur's offense, I feel like, than there are to Nathaniel Hackett's offense. So I'm curious to see if that translates with Lloyd Cushenberry. But let's say it doesn't. Let's say we go into training camp and Lloyd Cushenberry continues to struggle with the same issues that have plagued him throughout his career. Let's say he starts to get overwhelmed in play strength again and has multiple blown blocks both in pass blocking and in run blocking. I imagine Lloyd Cushenberry is going to be one of those players that plays quite a bit in the preseason. And let's say, for example, that some teams' backup players are out there overwhelming Lloyd Cushenberry. I could see a scenario where the Broncos are not confident in him going into the season. And there are some options on the roster to potentially replace Lloyd Cushenberry. The first one that comes to mind is Kyle Fuller. He's a free agent that we signed from the Seattle Seahawks, and he actually was Russell Wilson's starting center for 9 games in 2021. So there's already that quarterback-center relationship. Fuller's familiar with Russell Wilson's voice inflections, his cadence, how he likes to operate things at the line of scrimmage. So that would make the transition a lot smoother in my opinion. Then there's another wild card player on the roster in 7th round rookie Alex Forsyth out of Oregon. I really like a lot of Alex Forsyth's game, and I think there is a legitimate chance that Alex Forsyth could be in the mix to be our week 1 starting center, as crazy as that sounds. Now, Lloyd Cushenberry is obviously going to be the favorite for the job, but let's say that Alex Forsyth or Kyle Fuller comes in and absolutely blows away the staff in training camp, and Lloyd Cushenberry just kind of flounders and continues to disappoint. Then, at that rate, I feel like if you're Sean Payton, you have to set the tone and set the culture in this locker room, and you have to ride the hot hand. So you can't move forward with Lloyd Cushenberry just because he's got that 3rd round pedigree. If there's another guy on this roster who is playing better than Lloyd Cushenberry is at the center position, then you need to give that guy a shot. So overall, Broncos country, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting time for Lloyd Cushenberry going through training camp, and I think he's going to have to perform at a really high level and not risk getting outplayed by guys such as Kyle Fuller or Alex Forsyth, because I feel like there is a greater than 0 chance that one of those guys comes in and outplays Lloyd Cushenberry in training camp. And like I said earlier, at that rate, if you're Sean Payton, if you're Joe Lombardi, and if you're Zach Strief, you have to ride the hot hand, and you can't just insert Lloyd Cushenberry because he has that 3rd round pedigree. But I'm curious about your thoughts on Lloyd Cushenberry, Broncos country. Do you guys believe that he's going to play at a high level in 2023, or do you think that our future at the center position is elsewhere? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. As I always say, if you want to help us out, it helps us get pushed out to more and more people. It's free, and it's the easiest way that you can help support us. And until next time, guys, this has been another episode of Denver Broncos Syndicate. I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.